Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my channel, The Drown Kingdom Saga 7847. People might be wondering why I have been doing my book reviews live. The previous one I did regarding To Write Hell's Chasm by Jenny Wirtz. Just a bit of a spontaneity thing. I've been very busy recently, and I just thought it'd be kind of a cool thing because time has been precious that when I have time to pop on quickly and create a YouTube video, especially a book review, no one will be watching and that's fine. But I just thought if somebody wanted to tune in live and check it out, that's great. If not, that's fine. They can watch it after the fact. But yeah, I just thought it'd be kind of cool to do these book review videos live. And if anyone's watching, please, I appreciate you tuning in. I likely won't do much response to any comments. However, I do appreciate you tuning in and noticing this. And again, I see AP joining. AP, how you doing? Great to see him, the wonderful Critical Dragon. Check out his booktube channel. In any case, this particular video is a book review of none other than The Way of Edan by the wonderful Philip Chase. This book is, you've likely heard of this book, especially in self-published fantasy communities. It has simply blown up. It is something that has caught fire. Philip Chase, of course, the wonderful booktuber, author, academic. Please check out his channel. He posts some wonderful content. But yes, this is my review of The Way of Edan, book one in the Edan Trilogy. So I'd like to start off this video by providing a quote from this book. And this book has so much great quotable material. You can see there's lots of tabs. I actually didn't tab as much as I perhaps should have because there's some amazing quotable material in this book. This is one of my favorites, and it's very much sums up a lot of what this book represents. And it says, "My power shall be reborn in the one who awaketh and beholdeth the world anew. It is this one who shall save Eormenland from destruction, and such will be the true prophet of Edan." That's a wonderful quote. So once again, I'd mentioned how popular this book is. If one were to create a poll of a handful of the most anticipated indie fantasy books that have been released in 2023, I have zero doubt that this dark fantasy, The Way of Edan by Philip Chase, would be appearing on many of those polls. It's part of a planned trilogy with all three books therein, this Edan trilogy, to be released in 2023. And The Way of Edan is the exciting opening salvo in the Edan trilogy. And it's a series that has been decades in the making, as per the author. And in my opinion, judging by this first book, it's well worth the wait. So in this book, The Way of Edan, there's several third-person POVs that are utilized to weave this sweeping tale. The tale encompasses essentially a holy war based on avarice, greed for power, and ulterior motives, along with a genuine zeal and religious fanaticism. So a lot of it focuses on some of these POV characters. For example, a young boy who dreams of following in his famed warrior father's footsteps, but learns that destiny may have a greater plan for him. There's the heir to a great queen who must prove she's worthy of the high office to which she's bequeathed by testing herself as a diplomat. There's a peacemaker. There's a spy, a healer, and there's some great POV characters in this book. So in the meantime, this backdrop, it's a group of high priests, all with very different motivations and desires, and they will grapple over how best to guide the way, which is essentially the faith, the religion of Edan, towards ultimate supremacy before all is lost. At least that's what they believe, that all is lost unless this faith ascends to complete domination. So Chase's tale, it's grandiose, right? It's as ambitious as something like the famous Lord of the Rings, but it reads in surprisingly intimate fashion. As all the storylines kind of, they both larger and smaller, they're expertly woven together so that the reader has the entire scope of what's happening. On the macro scale, which is essentially the Holy War, at first, reading this book, one might believe there was an inciting event that started this war, but truly the war has been long in the planning, and on its face, there's a king Marwan, forgive my pronunciation, of Carigilion, and he refuses to punish the murderers of 3 priests who were sent to convert the Carigilians to the Way of Edan. Okay, so if you are looking and thinking that there's an inciting event, you might perhaps think that that's it. Now, this murder of 3 priests leads King Irconwald II of Torland, and urged by the supreme priest of the Way, whose name is Bloodlust, awesome character, opting to wage a holy war, chiefly, or at least it seems, in retaliation for the slain 3 priests, and for idolaters and heathens not submitting to the Way of Edan. Now Bloodlust, again, awesome character. He's fanatical. He's the most high-ranking and powerful, magically gifted priest in the world, and he genuinely believes he is the coming of the second prophet of Edan. Okay, so and again, I have a great quote from this book with that, and even this place of torment takes on beauty when it serves Edan's purpose. So that's just an example of the type of fanaticism, or just fanaticism and devotion you're gonna read in the Way of Edan. Now, Bloodlust, the supreme priest, his subordinate high priests do not all seem completely devoted to Bloodlust's cause or vision, despite their outward stance. Perhaps that's out of loyalty or fear, or simply hiding their own plans until their plans can come to fruition. And we see this particularly with 2 subordinate priests, under Bloodlust. There's the high priest Arna. He's a veteran. He's very respected. He's elderly. And then there's the ambitious and savvy high priest Joramun. And one of my favorite characters. And these 2 high priests, subordinate to Bloodlust, they seem to keep their own designs for the future of the Way and their religion close to the vest, and they're keeping an eye on one another, and they're keeping an eye on Bloodlust very carefully. So that's a great part of the plot. Meanwhile, this Irconwald, this king, who's supposed to be the titular leader of this holy war, he doesn't really have any real faith in Edan. He merely wants to be the king that rules it all. He wants to conquer and subjugate all the other kingdoms that might oppose him. And the holy war is just this pretense that gives him the means to do it. But this pair, he and Bloodlust, the supreme priest, they pair up to accomplish their mutual aims. But the plan seems to be to betray each other when the time is right and their mutual goals have been accomplished. So then, meanwhile, you have moving on to the no more noble characters. You have Queen Faldria of Astralad. Now this queen, she knows this war is coming. She knows this holy war is coming. She knows that the other kingdoms like Cargilion, Adanon, and the whole of this the realm, the major realm of Iormlon will fall into this holy war if something isn't done to stop it. So, and she must also protect her own island nation, and her faith, the Edumaic faith. And her queendom's strength is not only strength of arms, but also, and you'll see because of the kind of character she is, it's one of her queendom's strength is tact, compassion, healing, statescraft, this being politically savvy, and magic. Okay, and now we have another great quote I want to read from the book. Memories were all little lies strung together to confer the impression that a life had a story with its own meaning, that it existed apart from the energy from whence it came and whither it would return. So this queen, Faldria, knows that she has a part to play in potentially stopping the impending, this holy war goes forward. There's going to be wholesale slaughter. So Faldria has chosen an heir from among the ranking families in her realm. And this heir is a sorceress like her, and her name is Sakara. Okay, so Sakara has to set out into danger to attempt to draw all these nominally rival, moody, and suspicious rulers in all the realms to the cause of fighting the oppression of the holy war, and they have to team. All these rulers have to team with potentially those they initially mistrust, and find magical assistance to face from Sakura and Faldria to face the awesome power of Bloodlust, the supreme high priest, and the gaggle of high priests who follow Bloodlust. So now they're going to need more help than what they have. The alliance against the Holy War, and what's the help that's needed most? Well, that's Galdor, who is a chief counselor and wizard in the kingdom of Elam. So I have another great quote for the book. I would like to just pop in here at this juncture. So the truth is, it's easier to see justice in people you deem to be like you, and far easier to find the wrong in those who differ. And what I love with this quote is you have all these disparate kingdoms who, as I said, might not necessarily trust each other, but they have to band together for a common cause. And part of the reason why they mistrust is they don't see the commonalities between them, right? They don't understand that they're much more alike than they think, and because initially these other kingdoms seem different, they seem to be on the wrong side, but that's not necessarily the truth. So while this is going on, at the same time, in the land of the Mark, in the village of Kinsford, we have one of our other main characters, pretty well the main character of the book, Dayraven. Now, Dayraven's mother was said to be magically gifted and is long dead, but Dayraven's father, Edgil, is this famed fighter. So I referred to Dayraven earlier that he aspires to follow in the footsteps of his father, who's this great warrior. So Dayraven and his friend Imar who's bonded to Dayraven's family, and Daven's great aunt Erd, a formidable sorceress. These are the main characters in this land of the Mark, right? So, but Dayraven has this, without spoiling too much, he has this fateful encounter in the woods, and it changes his life forever. It makes him the target of these priests of the Way, right? Now, while Bloodlust, the supreme priest, and he has his high priest below, they're also minor priests. And in the Mark, that minor priest that's kind of in charge of Dayraven's village is Bagsack. I love that name. So Dayraven has to gather his courage, his wits, and the other talents he possesses, and be ready to play his unique role in this coming holy war. And I want to insert, if you'll, I crave your indulgence, with another great quote from the book about Dayraven, because when I think about him, this quote really sums up, I think, his arc for me in this book. Courage is when you fear shame more than death. So, as you can tell from what I've kind of said about the plot so far, in terms of characterization, my huge character-based reader, in The Way of Edan, Philip Chase gives the reader everything you'd possibly ask for, that most fantasy readers seem to profess they love in a novel. We have POVs from both villains and heroes. There are characters, so if you like your characters good, which many people do, there's some characters that are abjectly good, so you can root for them unabashedly. But then there's characters that are utterly detestable, which I love reading. I can't lie, and sometimes even comically so. So you can kind of like boo and hiss, and delight in their failures, but then wring your hands over when the bad guys triumph. But what I love and what I feel is when a book is phenomenal, is that in this book there are also enough gray and morally ambiguous characters that lend that shade of real realism and complexity to the book that avoid it avoids the entirety of the cast of the book from appearing too tropey, and it really adds to the overall dark fantasy feel of the book, which I absolutely loved. So Philip Chase, really does draw his characters very well. And if you've read any of my reviews and if you've read this book, despite how, kind of, not really, really really nice and kind-hearted the protagonist David was, or how altruistic and brave characters like Imar and Sakara are, you can imagine that based on, if you know me, you know the kind of books that I like and the kind of characters I like, and I'm very much a character-driven reader. My favorite was Joraman. Okay, Joraman, the high priest who's subordinate, one of the main high priests that's subordinate to Bloodlust. So Joraman's intellect and it just, that capacity for mayhem and schemes and, and vision and flexible morality, that made him the one character I just couldn't get enough of him. And I really wished for more page time from him. Other characters that stood out, the Dward brothers, they're dwarfs. They were also a hit for me, and then they were really entertaining. Of other main characters that I really liked, I also really like Sakara's aloofness, her air of detachment and mystery, and despite her definitely being a noble character, and I was wondering if her austerity would change in future novels, and if it does, how and why. I don't want to spoil too much because I have read The Prophet of Edan, just a phenomenal follow-up to The Way of Edan, and I will be doing at some point a dedicated review of that book as well, and I have to catch up on my Goodreads review, so I haven't posted a Goodreads review yet of The Prophet of Edan, but I will, and I will do a dedicated video because just, want to follow up. But anyways, back to The Way of Edan, with this book, the length of time that Philip Chase spent honing his writing craft. As I said, this book was a long time in the making. The amount of time Philip spent ruminating on the world he created and fabricating this phenomenal universe that at first glance appears to be, it appears to be as deep and satisfying as some of the most heralded imaginary worlds ever created, such as I referenced Tolkien, yes, such as Middle-earth and Westworld by George R. R. Martin, etc. And I think that the time that Philip has spent creating this world, it's definitely paid off. We have a lot of diverse characters and ones that you've seen in other fantasy books. Elves. Philip's version is somewhat terrifying and fascinating, and from what we glimpsed of them, and I loved it. I mentioned the Duergs, which are dwarves, and there's also some really neat creatures that are unique. The Aglax that Philip's created is kind of like troll-like creatures, and some really terrifying, deplorable things that kind of slime and creep on their bellies. And anyways, I don't want to spoil too much, but readers will absolutely revel and be disgusted by them, and it's great. And that's just the beginning, okay? I mentioned Tolkien, and I keep mentioning Tolkien in this review, and one reason why this book reminds me of the great J.R.R. Tolkien is it has these stupendous and fantastic histories and prophecies and lore and religion and cultures and races and languages, including words spoken in those unique languages that on the page, right, for things such as incantations and spells, or when the characters regale each other with tales of heroism, right? So there's this poetry, there's song. I mean, Philip Chase, wow, he is a true bard. And there's a homage to the oral tradition of cultures such as Norse. And Philip just has an exceptional imagination and style and ability in creating these elements of the fantasy novel. And again, it's just woven to the tapestry of the book. And I have to say it's reminiscent of masters like J.R.R. Tolkien. I mean, I can't say enough about how well Philip does that. And when it comes to the lore and the poetry and the songs, I just want to give you a sample of that. Again, this is through one of my tabs here, and the old tales take us to faraway times and places, but they're also where we come from. They tell us how we got here. So I love that quote. About the significance of storytelling. And there's a lot of storytelling within the story in this book that I absolutely loved. So So the attention to detail and loving care with which Philip Chase describes, especially pastoral settings, that's he does that. It's marvelous. And also the detail which would describe things like armor and weapons, and he does that. That classical inn by the wayside for weary travelers who are on these many sojourns through the countryside that occur in the book. And if you like authors like Robert Jordan, it's very Jordan-esque, so that's going to delight you. If you like that, those long voyages when you get to that inn and all the things that happen there. That's and this the depiction of the countryside. You'll love this book. Anyone who's read my reviews also knows I love soft magic systems. That's my preference. I've written blogs about it. I like the soft magic, and Philip Chase excels here too. And along with all the fantastical creatures, the main magical power in the Way of Edan is called the gift, and it's wielded not only by these priests of the religion of the Way, but by various religious and non-religious persons from different factions and all walks of life in the book. What I liked about that was that there's a randomness to who possesses the gift. It kind of makes things, exciting and unpredictable. And perhaps the most interesting feature was that this gift of power seems almost limitless, and in the hand of those using it, it can be potentially horrific in how it manifests. So I really look forward to future novels in this series to see just how destructive or how salvaging, how it can be used to save that this power of the gift can be. So, I'm big. Themes mean a lot to me when I read a book. If a book doesn't have compelling themes, perhaps my enjoyment will be lessened. But this book has that too. Some of the favorite themes I found the Way of Edan that I found most compelling were things that really are near and dear to my heart. Prejudice, bigotry, faith. Faith and religion for sure. You'll always get me in a fantasy book if you have that. Religious fanaticism, this has self-flagellation. Like it's pretty serious and compelling. There's obsession, there's fear, there's hatred, tragedy, pain, there's greed. Also camaraderie, found family. Those are things that a lot of people love in their fantasy books. There's loyalty, heroism, glory, and then so much more. And every theme that I found compelling here, it's really handled very well. So Philip does a great job of how he handles these themes. Now, the central theme, of the war, which is waged on many levels, it's waged physically, verbally, emotionally, over religion and faith. It's amazing that it's so reflective of our real world that something like this war, these wars often arise when one side believes theirs is the only answer. Like, when someone believes that their way is the only way to worship, and that can cause these conflicts. And I talk a lot I about the difference between religion and faith, and faith being the core belief system in the deity or deities, and religion being the trappings around it. And I think it's so much about the trappings, and the hierarchy around these faiths, because people feel that that's what really props and supports. Sometimes people can often believe that props and supports the actual faith up, and that their hierarchy is the only one that makes sense. And this is a theme that I will always irresistibly be drawn to, right? And we see Philip really illustrates in this book the jeopardy and the problem that happens when one set of people look at the other people of different or non-faiths and label them as apostates and idolaters and people who must be forcibly converted or destroyed. Like, there's no middle ground. You either with us and our faith and our religion, or you need to be cleansed, purged, and that's a big theme of this book that I found really compelling. So this struggle of humankind to preserve the best elements of organized religions and I've talked about this before, that organized religion can be a force for good in so many ways. But yet, while rejecting the evil and the perversion that religion can be used to shield or justify, um, and the outright impurity of human fallibility of those who are responsible, on earth, not the deities of leadership of the respective faiths. So, there's a lot of trust invested in religious leaders, and when those religious leaders become corrupt, and start to see themselves as bigger than the faith itself, or they start to commit atrocities in the name of that faith, that's extremely problematic. And Philip tackles this. And the inherent dangers when mortals believe themselves to be the anointed ones, the chosen ones, and they set themselves so far above others that they're godlike, right? That usually isn't a good thing. So these are kind of issues that Philip Chase begins to tackle in The Way of Edan, and I can't wait to see where he takes them throughout the series. So let's talk about some more technical aspects. For me, the pacing of this novel was excellent, with time for those touching moments of friendship and the family and loss and love and hope. There's lots of great exposition. There's, like I said, there's songs and poetry, and it's balanced with lots of political and religious intrigue and tension and this really portentous magic. There's humor but yes, overall, there's some very, very dark moments in this book, including some absolutely shocking and thrilling and violent scenes. So I guess just a warning there. There are some pretty violent scenes. Philip Chase, he clearly takes inspiration from masters of writing and fighting, like John Gwynne. And one thing I absolutely love about reading this book is, I love writers who have no reticence whatsoever with killing off characters, expediently, quickly and unexpectedly. And from the very few pages of this, and forgive me, I should have mentioned the prologue. This is one of the best prologues that I've ever read in fantasy. So from the very first pages of this fabulous and very unnerving prologue, Philip Chase, he shows the reader that no character is safe, blood will spray, and he's ready to put the characters that are surviving through these harrowing, these ghastly experiences, up into including their early and potentially unlooked for demise. So don't get attached to anyone in this series. This is probably the warning I would say, because Philip's willing to take them off the board, and I absolutely love that. So I need to quickly add, so I need to quickly add here that the battle scenes in this book were particularly well done, and it captures both the glory and the repellent nature of combat. So really well done. And I want to, speaking of battles, that I'm a big fan of the build up to the battle. I love the speeches before the battle. I love that, for me, it's about the rising tension before the actual combat that really sets the scene. And there was a great passage that I want to read to you just before a major battle in this book that I think highlights how well Philip does that build up. So now he understood whose will the drumbeats called him to obey. With this realization, he perceived the great pride illuminating the determined faces around him. In the eyes of his fellow soldiers glowed a strange joy. They're ready to kill and die and leap into an abyss to get to the foe. They were waiting for the man on the horse to tell them to do it. So, I love that, that build up, that hype towards a big battle scene. So you can imagine I keep reading these quotes from the book, and you know what? That leads me to the prose. The prose works perfectly for this type of book. It's accessible, yet it's punctuated with the more formal and sometimes obsolete words but it leads to this immersion when you read these make-believe worlds, right? I've included a lot of my favorite passages, like I said in this review, but there are so many that I adored and really remained and resonated with me long after I finished the book. If you consider specifically the poetry, it's told in a manner, it's more archaic, but it merges the classic with lyrical words and modern ones, and it's really effective. I really did enjoy it. I love the prose. I think most of the criticisms of this book are going to center around some of the well-worn tropes, especially the chosen one trope. You know, because you have a main character who's unaware of his values from a small village. Like I said, he seems really syrupy good sometimes and surrounded by little friends. But rest assured, if you can get past any distaste or annoyance with that particular trope of the chosen one, that's this goody two shoes, you'll be rewarded with a marvelous dark fantasy book that incorporates, for me, all the best that I love reading about this genre. And I think there's something for almost everyone here. I said, there's engrossing characters. I talked about compelling themes. The storytelling is really engaging. There's some spectacular action sequences. I talked about the battles, this book has that classical fantasy feel, with attainable prose, and it really makes for a great read. I guess summing this up, The Way of Edan is currently vying with a few other books for my favorite book of the year. It's gonna be tough because, without spoiling, this book was phenomenal, but I believe I love the sequel, The Prophet of Edan, even better. So, it's gonna be a tough book of the year selections near the end. But this book was phenomenal. I can't envision a scenario, even though we're only halfway through 2023, that this will not figure in the discussion of my best indie books for the year. It's a rare book, in my estimation, that deserves the company hype. I highly recommend this book. This book is, again, it's hard when a book has been hyped up this much. I mean, the buzz prior to this coming out, as I said, was absolutely incredible. And even though Philip only released this book in March, it's already up to about 374 ratings on Goodreads at the time of this review, and about 120 reviews. So it is extremely popular. It's well reviewed. You'll check out YouTube for other phenomenal booktubers who posted reviews of this book. I go check it out. It is a marvelous book that I feel you're really gonna love it. If you like John Gwynne and you like that type of action and camaraderie and some thrilling, amazing battle scenes that are gonna have you, the hair on the back of your neck stand on end. Some really creepy creatures, the religious, the holy war aspect, and these really gray characters. Like, there's so much to love in this book. So once again, thanks for watching, for listening, and thanks for everyone in the chat that put up these comments. I apologize, I won't be into them, but I really appreciate you showing up and watching this video. Go get The Way of Edan. It's there's a reason why it's one of the most hyped self-published fantasy books out there this year, and the whole trilogy promises to be just amazing. So once again, thank you so much for watching and listening, and we will see you again next time. Bye-bye now.